Jean-Claude Van Damme had been investigated in Brussels by a prosecutor for sexual assault, and I found out more information about what happened on the set of Friends in 1996 with Jennifer Aniston and Courtney Cox. So I did a live earlier today, and we talked a little bit about Jean-Claude Van Damme's allegations and the criminal complaint and case that is coming from Romania, right? And just a little bit of the problematic history that Jean-Claude Van Damme has had. Not only that, but it got us to like a whole different conversation about how these martial art cinema heroes, and I'll say this, heroes, because I know some of us grew up watching them. So I definitely watched a lot of Jean-Claude Van Damme movies, but he wasn't the only person. Then there was Steven Seagal, okay, who literally has been labeled like the biggest liar POS person in the industry. And allegations came out on Steven Seagal as well. But I feel like he got away with a lot of shit. And people in the industry kind of knew how much of a creep Steven Seagal was, and the allegations against him by, at the time, the victims were children. All of these martial art personalities have had a problematic history, but let's get into these allegations, right, with Jean-Claude Van Damme. So we find out that Jean-Claude Van Damme essentially is being investigated by the Romanian government regarding allegations that he had sex with 5 women that were offered to him. And these 5 women happened to be victims of a human trafficking ring. Okay. Now, we don't know how many years ago this was. We don't know exactly what happened in between. What we do know is that, Romania, in their reporting of the news, said that, Jean-Claude Van Damme has had a problematic history overall with just excessive partying, crashing cars. There's been all kinds of accidents involving cars. In his personal life, he's had love affairs. He's divorced his wife. One of his wives said that she had concerns about her safety because of his drug abuse. So he has had an issue with substances, which to me, I think it would make sense, right? Anybody that is, in the sporting area, that they could be doing, I don't know, steroids or something, right? Some of you guys asked in the comments during the live stream that because Van Damme is being investigated for this in Romania, whether there is a connection to this investigation with the Tate brothers. Okay, you guys know they've also have been investigated and have left Romania, which is where they were facing those human trafficking charges, right? And of course they're denying all those charges and whatnot, but it did kind of make me wonder if by chance, if they're investigating the same ring. These rings tend to kind of overlap each other, right? Like, it does make you wonder if the Tate brothers and Van Damme are somehow connected to this. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. But I had never really heard allegations of a kind of sexual nature on Jean-Claude Van Damme until I started digging. And what I found was that Jean-Claude Van Damme had been investigated in Brussels by a prosecutor for sexual assault, and I found out more information about what happened on the set of Friends in 1996 with Jennifer Aniston and Courtney Cox. Jean-Claude Van Damme made like a little cameo appearance on Friends in 1996, and this was the episode, the one after the Super Bowl part 2. And so essentially the plot of this scene or show was that Rachel and Monica, which we know is Jennifer Aniston and Courtney Cox, they are fighting over Jean-Claude Van Damme, right? And they're fighting over him and his attention, and they place Jean-Claude Van Damme in this like pedestal. And in the script, Phoebe, Lisa Kudrow, is basically trying to tell Rachel and Monica, y'all are being ridiculous. Like, stop being ridiculous, okay? It's not until Jean-Claude Van Damme basically suggests to both of them why don't they just have a threesome? And that's when both Monica and Rachel decide to dump him. Now, Jean-Claude Van Damme did later on talk about, his thoughts behind his little cameo. However, Michael Lembeck, who at the time was like the Friends director, basically gave a statement to the Hollywood Reporter, giving a history of what happened on that episode with Jean-Claude Van Damme. And Michael basically says that he remembers that Jean-Claude Van Damme was quite difficult to manage. The director remembered the actor as being unprepared and unprofessional. But more troubling, Lembeck brought up an incident where Van Damme made both Aniston and Cox uncomfortable. In a bonus scene that didn't air on the original broadcast, Van Damme kisses Rachel and Monica. According to Lembeck, filming didn't go so smooth. This is a direct quote. He's unprepared and arrogant, but this is the story I want to share. We shoot him and Jennifer first. Then she walks over to me and says, Lem, would you do me a favor and ask him not to put his tongue in my mouth when he's kissing me? I tell him everything is great, but it's a tight shot, so maybe let's not do that. Then we're shooting a scene later with Courtney. Here comes Courtney walking towards me and saying, Lem, can you please tell him not to put his tongue in my mouth? I couldn't believe it. I had to tell him again, but a little firmer. Hold on. No. Direct quote. I'm sure that both Jennifer Aniston and Courtney Cox probably didn't want to like make a big deal about this, right? Like how touchy-feely Van Damme was being. I mean, this is 1996. Van Damme is still fucking Van Damme. You know what I mean? And I hate to put it that way, but we're far away from the Me Too movement. We're far away from people actually being able to speak out in the industry. Hell, like where is the human resources department when it comes to things like that in Hollywood? This is a whole different era in the 90s where, you would feel uncomfortable. You would feel notably uncomfortable. You tell your director, like, hey, I'm uncomfortable. And you still had to work through somebody putting their tongue in your throat. Like, literally. And even Lembeck is saying, like, listen, he's unprepared and arrogant, right? They're shooting this scene with Jennifer Aniston, okay? And she's walking over there and she says, Lem, would you do me a favor and ask him not to put his tongue in my mouth when he's kissing me? I mean, I know that there's different levels of like kissing. You don't always kiss with your mouth open. And I'm sure certain scenes, and actors and actresses would know this, right? Like there's coaching people for this, right? So keep that in mind. Here's Lembeck letting Van Damme know, like, hey, don't do that, okay? And then here comes Courtney, and Courtney's like, Lem, can you please tell this guy not to put his tongue in my mouth? And this is the scene that I guess did not get used for their episode, and he had to tell him again, and this time it was a little further. Now, it's worth noting that neither Van Damme nor any of the Friends cast comment on the incident, which Michael Lembeck describes. It's possible that the director is embellishing the story or remembering differently. But if it did unfold in a way that Lembeck mentions, it serves a fairly clear example of how power dynamics can creep into this interaction. Hopefully that's not like a misrepresentation or anything like that. I definitely believe this director's account of events, even though Van Damme and Aniston and Courtney Cox have never really spoken about it publicly, or others for that matter. But I definitely believe that there was something to that. There have been other things that have been said about Van Damme's appearance on Friends. But what I found next was very interesting, and there's not a lot of information about this specific investigation that happened in Brussels. Let's talk about it. as I was looking into things about Jean-Claude Van Damme, right, it turns out that this is not the first time that allegations have come out against Jean-Claude Van Damme. This is what I mean by not the first time. There were some recent ones. Jean-Claude Van Damme accused of sexual assault, and this was back in 2022 that this happened. So the Brussels public prosecutor is investigating a complaint against the Hollywood star Jean-Claude Van Damme. The 61-year-old at the time, who he's 64 now, but at the time he was 61, is accused of assaulting a 33-year-old woman at an exclusive champagne bar in Brussels. The case dates back actually to August 20th of 2021. All right. And it took place in a ritzy champagne bar, which is said to be frequent by Jean-Claude Van Damme. After some initial flirting, things turned sour when the actor attempted to assault the woman. Van Damme is accused of touching the woman and asking her to have sex with him. The woman alleges that he pushed her into a toilet cubicle and tried to get her clothes off and force her to perform oral sex on him. Yet the woman managed to escape and lodged a complaint after the incident. The public prosecutor of Brussels confirmed that an investigation was taking place at that time against Jean-Claude Van Damme, and multiple people have been questioned. The Hollywood star management declined to make any comments on those allegations at that time. Now, so he's no stranger to allegations against him. I mean, clearly there have been. But that was one in Brussels, and nothing came out. There was no criminal charges or anything. So, I mean, keep that in mind. But there was somebody that made allegations against him, and this was, I would say fairly recent, at least in the last 5 years. Guys, I need you to tell me what you think in the comments about this whole situation. What do you think about Jean-Claude Van Damme and prior history with friends, with, that Brussels investigation? What do you guys make of all of that? And overall, like, what do you think about these, 80s and 90s martial arts heroes who, in reality, have probably had a very problematic history that, definitely they don't want to disclose, but it's definitely out there. What do you guys make of all of that? Is it the environment? Is it the fact that it's like action packed and therefore anything goes? Is it conducive of other things? Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, tap that notification, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.